There's one specific section of this store that I watch older shoppers walk straight past almost every single time I'm in here, and I mean that literally, not past it slowly while glancing over, completely past it, like it doesn't exist at all. I started paying close attention to this a few weeks ago, and after watching dozens of shopping trips play out in that same aisle, I'd estimate something close to 97% of older shoppers never stop there for more than a few seconds, if they stop at all. I asked an employee why, and her answer made complete sense once she explained it. Most longtime shoppers built a mental habit years ago: everything here is $1. Don't even bother checking anything that looks even slightly nicer or bigger than usual. That habit made sense for a long time. It doesn't anymore. This specific section, the one carrying slightly higher priced items, $3, $5, occasionally more, is where some of the most genuinely useful, higher quality products in the entire store are sitting right now, and almost nobody over a certain age is even looking. Today, I'm walking you through 12 specific items from exactly that section, so you know precisely what you've been walking past. And stick with me through all 12, because by the end I'm going to ask you to do one specific thing that genuinely helps more people than you'd expect, so don't skip out early on this one. I want to be clear too, this isn't me making fun of anyone's shopping habits. This exact instinct, everything here is $1 so don't bother checking anything pricier, was completely reasonable advice for years. It just hasn't kept up with how this store has actually changed, and that gap between old habit and current reality is exactly what today's video is about. Before I get into the list, quickly, if you know someone, a parent, a grandparent, a neighbor, who still shops here the old way, everything's $1, don't even look elsewhere, go ahead and send them this video once you're done watching it. That one small favor is honestly the biggest thing you can do to help someone else get real value out of what I'm about to show you, since a lot of these habits are built over years and a single video isn't going to undo that on its own, but a person they trust sharing it just might. I'll remind you again at the very end too, because I genuinely think this is more useful shared than watched alone. Number 1. A set of real ceramic dinnerware, 4 full-place settings, running $3. Not the thin single-use paper plates most people associate with a dollar store, actual ceramic, microwave, and dishwasher safe, the kind of set you genuinely set a table with for a real meal. The employee mentioned older shoppers specifically walk past this exact display constantly, assuming ceramic dinnerware at this specific store has to be some kind of catch, when in reality it's simply priced within this newer, slightly higher tier rather than the original dollar range. For anyone replacing chipped or mismatched everyday dishes without wanting to spend real money at a department store, this is one of the more genuinely surprising values sitting in that section. I actually picked up one plate specifically to check the weight and glaze quality, half expecting it to feel thin or rough around the edges, and it genuinely didn't. Smooth glaze, even weight distribution, nothing that gave away the price at a glance. Number 2, an insulated cooler bag, the kind built for keeping groceries or a packed lunch cold for several hours, priced at $5. Comparable insulated bags at grocery or outdoor stores typically run $15 to $25. The construction felt genuinely sturdy in hand, real zippers, real insulation lining, not the flimsy foil-lined bag you might expect at a lower price point. For anyone managing grocery trips in the heat, or bringing meals along to appointments or visits, this is a small quality-of-life upgrade that a lot of shoppers walk right past simply because $5 feels like too much for a store they've mentally filed under everything's $1. I tested it by loading it with a few frozen items and leaving it in a warm car for close to an hour, and everything inside was still noticeably cold when I checked, genuinely comparable to bags costing 4 or 5 times as much elsewhere. Number 3, a digital kitchen scale, $3, battery included. This is a genuinely useful tool for anyone managing portion sizes for health reasons, tracking sodium or sugar intake, or simply cooking more precisely, and a comparable scale at a kitchen specialty store runs anywhere from $12 to $20. The display was clear and easy to read, and it powered on and calibrated correctly right out of the package when I tested it myself. For anyone managing a specific dietary need where precise measurement actually matters, this is one of the more practically valuable items in that entire section. Sitting quietly on a shelf, most people don't even glance at. A family member of mine specifically needs to track sodium intake carefully, and after testing this scale against a much pricier one she already owns, the readings matched closely enough that I genuinely couldn't justify recommending she keep paying for the expensive version going forward. Number 4, a soft weighted lap blanket, $7. Weighted blankets have become genuinely popular for their calming effect, and a comparable smaller lap-sized weighted blanket at a specialty retailer runs $30 to $50 depending on the weight and material. This smaller version is sized specifically for lap use while sitting in a chair, watching television, or reading, rather than a full bed-sized version, which also makes it lighter and easier to manage for anyone who might struggle with a heavier, larger blanket. The employee mentioned this specific item sells steadily to a very particular group of repeat customers who've discovered it, but rarely to anyone browsing casually. Since it's tucked into that higher price section, most people scan right past. I actually sat with it draped over my lap for a few minutes while chatting with her, and the gentle, even pressure was genuinely noticeable, calming in a way that's honestly hard to describe until you've felt it firsthand. Number 5. A real glass tumbler set. 4 glasses, $5 total. Genuine glass, not plastic, with a satisfying weight in hand that immediately signals it's not the flimsiest option on the shelf. A comparable glassware set at a home goods store runs $15 to $25. I ran these through a dishwasher cycle specifically to test durability, and they came out without a single chip or crack. For anyone replacing old mismatched drinking glasses, or wanting something nicer for guests without spending real money, this quietly outperforms what the price tag would suggest. Holding one up to the light, there was even a subtle, pleasant refraction along the base, the kind of small detail you genuinely don't expect at this specific price point. Number 6. A compact electric kettle, $10, the most expensive single item on this entire list. A comparable electric kettle at a kitchen appliance store typically runs $25 to $40. I tested this one specifically for how quickly it brought water to a boil, and it performed within a reasonable range of what you'd expect from a mid-range kettle elsewhere. Nothing fancy, but genuinely functional for daily tea or instant coffee. For anyone who makes hot water multiple times a day and has been using a stovetop kettle or microwave out of habit, this is a real quality of life upgrade sitting at a price point still dramatically below what you'd pay almost anywhere else. The auto shutoff feature worked reliably in my testing too, clicking off cleanly once the water reached a full boil rather than needing to be watched the entire time. A small safety detail that matters more than people often realize. Number 7. A compact garden tool set, 3 pieces with cushioned grips, $5. Real metal tool heads, not flimsy plastic, with the same kind of cushioned easy grip handles I've talked about before on this channel for reducing strain on hands. A comparable set at a garden center runs $15 to $20. For anyone who gardens regularly, even just tending a few pots on a porch or a small flower bed, this is a genuinely practical tool upgrade hiding in a section most people never think to check for anything garden-related at all. I used the small trowel specifically to repot a plant the same afternoon, and the cushioned handle noticeably reduced the strain I usually feel in my wrist after even a short amount of digging. Number 8. A set of memory foam bath mats, 2 mats, $5. Genuinely plush, supportive foam, not the thin, flat bath mats typically found at this price range elsewhere. A comparable 2-pack at a home goods store runs $12 to $20. Standing on one specifically to test the cushioning, it had real give and support underfoot, exactly what you'd want stepping out of a shower onto a cold bathroom floor. For anyone who's specifically been looking to add a little comfort to a bathroom routine without spending real money, this is a small, easy upgrade sitting quietly in that overlooked section. Comparing it side by side against an older, flatter mat I had at home, the difference in cushioning was immediately obvious. Enough that I ended up swapping mine out the same day. Number 9. A compact folding step stool, $5, rated for a genuinely reasonable weight capacity printed right on the packaging. A comparable folding step stool at a hardware or home store runs $15 to $25. This is a small but genuinely useful item for reaching a higher shelf or cabinet safely, rather than standing on a chair or countertop, something worth having specifically for safety reasons regardless of your age, but especially useful if balance or reach has become more of a concern over time. The folding mechanism locked securely in place during my test, with no wobble once fully opened. I stood on it myself, shifting my weight deliberately from side to side, and it held completely steady, which honestly mattered more to me than almost any other single test I ran while putting this list together, given how genuinely serious a fall from something unstable can be. Number 10. A set of large handle grooming tools, specifically nail clippers, and a file with oversized, easy grip handles, $3. Designed with the same accessibility thinking as the kitchen utensils I've mentioned on this channel before, these are noticeably easier to hold and control than standard, small-handled versions, particularly for anyone dealing with reduced hand strength or dexterity. A comparable accessibility-focused grooming set at a specialty store runs $8 to $15. It's a small, easy-to-overlook item, but a genuinely thoughtful one once you actually understand who it's designed for. Holding the standard version and this larger handled version side by side, The difference in control was immediately obvious, less slipping, less effort needed to actually close the clippers with any precision. Number 11, a compact indoor door alarm and chime, $5, battery operated. This is a simple motion or door sensor that chimes when triggered. Something a lot of people specifically use for a bit of extra peace of mind. Whether that's knowing when someone's come through a front door, or keeping track of a family member who might wander during the day. A comparable basic door chime at a hardware or security store runs $15 to $25. The employee mentioned this specific item gets requested by name fairly often, but only by shoppers who already know to look in that section, since it's genuinely not something you'd stumble onto browsing the traditional dollar aisles. I tested the sensor myself by walking past it a few times, and the chime triggered reliably every single time, loud enough to actually be heard from another room, without being jarring or overly harsh. And finally, item number 12, the one that surprised me the most sitting in that section. A genuine real wool blend cardigan sweater, $7. Not a thin, itchy synthetic throw-on, an actual soft, well-constructed cardigan with real buttons and finished seams. The kind of thing you'd expect to pay $25 to $40 for at a regular clothing retailer. I tried it on myself specifically to check the construction and fit, and it held up to close inspection far better than I expected walking in. For anyone who could use a comfortable, affordable extra layer for cooler mornings or an air-conditioned room, this is genuinely one of the best hidden values in that entire section. Sitting on a rack most people walk past without a second glance, because clothing simply isn't what they expect to find here at all. I actually checked the seams inside out specifically, looking for the loose threads or uneven stitching that usually gives away a cheaply made garment, and genuinely couldn't find any. Clean, even stitching all the way around. Buttons that felt securely attached rather than barely hanging on. So that's the full list. 12 genuinely valuable items sitting in the one section of this store that older, longtime shoppers specifically walk past almost every single time, based on what I've personally watched happen in that exact aisle over and over again. None of these are gimmicks or filler items included just to round out a list. Every single one solves a real specific need, comfort, safety, convenience, at a price that still undercuts what you'd pay almost anywhere else. Even at $3, $5, or $10 instead of the original dollar price point, most people still associate with this entire store. That old habit, everything here is $1, don't bother looking at anything pricier, made complete sense for a long time. It's just genuinely outdated now, and based on what I watched happen in that aisle repeatedly, it's quietly costing a lot of longtime shoppers access to some of the best individual values in the entire building. I want to sit with that idea for just a moment longer, because I think it's actually the most important thing in this entire video, more than any single item on the list itself. Habits like that's one form for good reasons. Years of consistent pricing build genuine trust, and that trust naturally turns into a mental shortcut, a quick rule that saves you from having to think too hard every single time you walk in. The problem isn't that the habit was ever wrong, it's that the store changed underneath it without most people getting the memo. A whole section of genuinely higher quality, higher value items quietly appeared, and the old shortcut, skip anything that looks pricier, started working against the exact people it used to protect. That's not a criticism of anyone who's been doing this, it's just how habits work, and it's exactly why a video like this one matters, not to point out a mistake, but to gently update information that simply hasn't caught up yet. Here's that one thing I asked you to stick around for. If there's a specific person in your life who still shops here the old way, someone who'd genuinely benefit from knowing this section exists, send them this video right now, before you do anything else, before you forget, before this tab closes. That single share is worth more than any comment or like, because it's the one action that actually changes how someone shops next time they're standing in that store. I mean that seriously, more than the usual closing line you hear at the end of a video like this. Think about the specific person who came to mind while I said that a moment ago, because someone probably did. Maybe it's a parent who still counts out exact change, assuming everything's $1. Maybe it's a grandparent who genuinely loved that weighted lap blanket or that cardigan, but would never think to look for either one here. A quick text with a link to this video takes less time than finishing this sentence, and it's genuinely the kind of small, thoughtful thing that sticks with someone far longer than you'd expect from something that took you 10 seconds to send. And if you want to see this same kind of section-by-section breakdown for other overlooked parts of this store, subscribe and let me know in the comments which specific aisle you'd want covered next. I'm planning to keep digging into exactly this kind of overlooked value hiding in plain sight, and your comments genuinely shape which section I tackle next. A quick like on your way out helps this video actually reach the people who need to see it most, so if any part of this list surprised you, that's honestly the easiest way to say so. Thanks for sticking with me through all 12, and I'll see you in the next one.